Guys, what is going on? I hope you guys are well. So guys, we had a fight last night. The Jermell, Charlo and Brian Castano. What a fight it was. Definitely fight of the year candidate. Epic battle. Great back and forth action between two great fighters in Charlo and Castano. The fight ended in a split draw. Let's get into it. Let's break it down. Guys, I firstly got to give massive props to Brian Castano. What a performance. And I must also say that I underestimated Brian Castano. Now, I had seen clips of Brian Castano. I'm going to be honest, I didn't see whole fights. I had seen a clips, but quite a lot of clips, of him fighting. And I thought that Jermell Charlo would be a lot more skilled than Brian Castano. Jermell Charlo would be the bigger, stronger guy. Jermell Charlo would be able to control Brian Castano with his jab. And I thought on the inside when Brian Castano, because I knew Brian Castano was a pressure fighter, when Brian Castano comes in, I felt like Jermell Charlo was going to catch him with an uppercut or catch him with something big, because Jermell Charlo is quite an explosive puncher. And I thought he was going to knock Brian Castano out, but I was shocked. Firstly, don't get me wrong, Brian Castano was wobbled a couple of times in the fight. Charlo did get to him, especially later on in the fight. I thought Charlo started, I thought Charlo started to, pick up the pace. And I thought later on in the fight, Charlo definitely won some of those later rounds. But Castano early on in the fight, wow, his aggressive pressure. And you know what really impressed me about Castano is when he was coming forward, he wasn't wild. He was very well orchestrated. His punches were very technically sound. Everything about Castano was beautiful. The way he was coming forward, his pressure was aggressive and it wasn't reckless. His hand speed, wow, his hand speed was unbelievable. When he was at Charlo on the back foot, Charlo was on the ropes. Charlo was on the ropes too much. I don't understand why Charlo didn't use his reach, and he didn't use his height to keep the fight in the center of the ring. His coach, Derek James, said that, Charlo needs to be off the ropes. Why was Charlo fighting on the ropes? I didn't understand. I thought it was really poor from Charlo fighting on the ropes. He was giving someone like Castano, who has very fast hands, a pressure fighter, and basically he was giving up his physical advantages to Brian Castano. And Brian Castano had him on the ropes and he was being very effective. He was letting his hands go. It was great back and forth action. Great back and forth action, but I just expected more from Jermell Charlo. I expected him to be a lot more. I expected Jermell to be, a lot more, his boxing IQ to, be a lot better than what he showed in the fight last night. Today morning here in the UK time. But yeah, I wasn't impressed by Jermell. I thought Jermell would beat Brian Castano quite convincingly. And I've got to give credit to Brian Castano because I underestimated him and he showed me that he's an unbelievable world-class fighter. World-class fighter. And I was really impressed. Really impressed. And although I said that Jermell Charlo was fighting on the ropes and he should have been fighting in the center of the ring, how much of that was down to the fact that Brian Castano was pushing Jermell Charlo back? Jermell was on the back foot, and Jermell has been outboxed before, so this isn't something that hasn't happened before, because Tony Harrison beat Jermell Charlo before, and then Jermell Charlo came back in the rematch and made the adjustments and beat him. I do think that Jermell Charlo is a competitor, and Jermell Charlo, this isn't going to sit well with Jermell Charlo. And I think Jermell Charlo is going to want to rematch him and look to do a job on him. I do think Jermell Charlo in the rematch I personally think would do a lot better. But Brian Castano showed that he's a world-class fighter. I think it was a very close fight. Personally, had Castano winning 7-5. I thought he won 115, 113, but it was no robbery. I can see the draw. I don't have a problem with the draw. A lot of people online that are shouting robbery. Come on. Here's the problem that I have with people that shout robbery, right? The only reason you're shouting robbery is because Brian Castano wasn't favored to win this fight. Jermell Charlo was favored to win this fight. So the reason why you're doing it is because you're because the underdog did a lot better than what you thought. right, you're shouting robbery. I personally had Castano winning 7-5, but that doesn't mean that I think it was a robbery. Guys, just because the guy that wasn't supposed to win wins close and the fight could be a draw, doesn't mean it's a robbery. Just because the guy did a lot better than what we expected doesn't mean the fight was a robbery. A robbery is Pacquiao-Bradley. That's a robbery. A robbery isn't a close fight. That could be a draw. You know, the 117, 111 scorecard was disgraceful. The judge should be investigated. That was a disgraceful scorecard. But by no means this is a robbery. It's not a robbery. The general consensus is online that Brian Castano won the fight. But again, I'll say it again, and I'll say it loud and clear, right? Just because the guy that isn't supposed to win does a lot better than what he's supposed to do doesn't mean the fight's a robbery. I feel like a lot of people, we saw this with John Ryder here in the UK and Callum Smith. The fight was a lot closer than what people thought, and then the people said, oh, it's a robbery, John Ryder was robbed. That's not how boxing works, right? A robbery is when it's a stone cold robbery where you can clearly say, well, there's no way, like Lewis Ritson or Timothy Bradley v. Manny Pacquiao. That is, for me, a robbery. A robbery isn't a fight that's 7-5, because that means the judge can see the one round the opposite way, right? When there's a very close swing round and they can give it a draw. So that's not a robbery. A 7-5, if you have a fight 7-5 and someone scores it 6-6, that's not a robbery. It's not a robbery. I know Jermell Charlo has a lot of his detractors, and I know Charlo brothers have a lot of detractors, but you know me on my channel. I keep it fair. I thought Castano won 7-5, but no robbery. No robbery. I'm happy with the draw because now we get to see a rematch. I haven't got a problem with the draw. Guys, we need to get out of this. We need to get out of this robbery stuff. There's fights that are robberies and there's fights that are close, like this one. People are quick to shout robbery, especially when the guy that's not supposed to do as well as he did does a lot better. People start shouting robbery. I thought Castano won 7-5, but that's by no means that I'm saying that a 7-5 in Charlo's favor or 6-6 is an unfair decision. No. Because there's swing rounds. People see things differently. You may have seen a round one way. Someone may have seen a round. Remember, these are great fighters fighting each other in very nip and tuck fights. It's not blatant. It's not blatant. That wasn't a blatant robbery. Most people had it 7-5, 115, 113 to Castano. That's not a robbery. That's a judge seeing the fight one round that way and it's a draw. So how is that a robbery? I'm sick and tired of people shouting robbery all the time. Like, I get Jermell Charlo was a politically more connected fighter. I get all of that. But the fact of the matter is that it's no robbery. Robberies are like Bradley Pacquiao, where it's quite blatant that Bradley lost that fight. A robbery isn't a fight that, you know, someone sees 7-5. That's not a robbery. That's a close fight that could go either way. Because all it means is two judges to see two rounds differently and Charlo wins. Do you understand? So this is what I'm trying to say. Don't be quick to shout robbery. Because robbery is something that is quite blatant that guy won. That wasn't blatant. 115, 113 isn't a blatant, you know, robbery. It's a very close fight. I thought Castano's work early on in the fight was enough should have been enough to edge it out. But again, if a judge saw it differently, at 6-6, 117, 111, I can't see that. I can't see that. So that scorecard is terrible, right? But the other scorecards were bang on. 114, 114, and what was the other one? One of them had Castano winning. One of them had Charlo winning, massive wide, of course, and then one of them had a draw. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I just don't understand how one of them can have it 117 and 111 and the others have it so, like, how can, like, Charlo didn't win that fight 117, 111. That was a terrible scorecard. You know, if you had Charlo winning 115, 113, I can see that. But having him 117, 111, that's quite a big, nah, I'm sorry. Especially early rounds, Castano really did well in the early rounds. He really put a lot of pressure. He really suffocated, you know, Charlo in that early part of that fight. Then, you know, Charlo came back good in the second half of the fight, especially in the later last 4 rounds. You know, Charlo did very well. Charlo, you know, came on, and he was very strong in the latter rounds of that fight. So yeah, I'm happy with the draw because that means we'll get a rematch. And I think both guys deserve a rematch. They don't deserve another payday. Charlo, let's see if he can make the adjustments in the rematch, because we know against Tony Harrison, Charlo made the adjustments. So can he make the adjustments again? I'm pretty sure Charlo will be devastated because he was expected to win and he was the favorite going into the fight. So I'm pretty sure Charlo's not going to be happy with himself, and Charlo's going to want to come back and do a job on Brian Castano. And I'm pretty sure Castano's going to feel like he belongs at that level, and Castano feels that he's going to go out and beat him next time, fair and square. He's going to go out there and dominate the next fight. You know, I'm pretty sure Castano is now, before going into the fight, he thought he could do it. Now he knows he can do it. You know, his confidence levels will be through the roof. And Charlo is going to be, like I said, I feel like Charlo is a very fiery competitor. And he's going to want to go out there and do a number on this guy. He's going to want to go out there and you know, put this draw right. Because, you know, Charlo feels that, nah, I'm better than that. I need to go in there and beat this guy and become undisputed. You know, Charlo's a very fiery, driven character, and I do believe that Charlo, I would favor Charlo again in the rematch. I think Charlo would get the better of Castano in the rematch, just because I think Charlo, like I said, he'll come back and he'll make those adjustments. I don't know whether Charlo can make the adjustments during the fights, and that for me is stopping him getting to that next level. But I do think that Charlo, from the Harrison fight, we saw he made the adjustments and he knocked Harrison out, and I think he can do that again. It's just that I think Charlo maybe needs to become, I think Charlo during the fight should be able to make the correct adjustments, something that Floyd Mayweather, Canelo, some of the elite fighters in the modern day have been able to do. Charlo might lack that. So yeah, we have to wait and see how Charlo does in the rematch. I would still favor Charlo in the rematch. I think Charlo will make the correct adjustments. And Charlo said after the fight that he feels he'll knock Castano out in the rematch. I would see it like that. I think Charlo would make the correct adjustments like he did with Harrison. You know, I know a lot of people are going to doubt Charlo again and say Charlo going to get beat by Castano. A lot of people said that about the Harrison fight. And let's not forget, Harrison beat Charlo, and then he came back and stopped him. So, you know, yeah, I like the rematch. I think it will be a great fight, another great fight, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Charlo's career. I'm looking forward to Brian Castano's career. Brian Castano is a great fighter, no doubt about it. He's shocked me tonight. I knew Brian Castano wasn't a slouch, but I wasn't expecting Brian Castano to be as good as he was. Very skilled, very good pressure fighter, not a reckless pressure fighter. A very smart pressure fighter with technically very sound punches. He was very technically correct. He was very good. Educated pressure. Brilliant by Brian Castano. And, you know, I think he did great. And I think he was very unlucky because I had him personally winning 7-5. But, again, a draw's not a robbery. But, yeah, leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. And, guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.